Okay, today is Thursday. It's 6:15 p.m. It's the last trading period for this week. Today, I suffered a third day of losses, and I lost approximately 6% in 3 days. Today, I lost 3%. Yesterday, I lost 0.5%. And then the day before, I lost 2%. Okay? Somewhere around 6%. So after I found out what I did to lose, it occurred to me the reason that I lost was a complication of not latching in to the current predicament of the market. So essentially, the first day that I lost, I was bullish on UC. And the reality was it was actually on its way down. And then I held on to it just way too long and lost. But my mindset didn't change. And so the next day it carried over, but it didn't move as much, so I didn't lose as much. And I was able to make other trades that allowed me to recoup the losses that I've incurred. Today, essentially, I made several trades and across the board it was losses. So there is this thing that occurs. It's like, so there's a few things, there's a couple things that occurs. If I converse with somebody who has no idea how to trade, then there are subconscious thoughts that gets transferred over to me, and that transference is ignorance of trading. Okay, and so I fall back into. It seems like when I convert with somebody who doesn't know how to trade, my brain gets like washed away. It gets like erased. So I have to regenerate it, experience it over again in order to regain the edge that I have. So essentially, the edge that I have is essentially the brain being able to make the right trades. So I've disclosed in the past that I worked as a dishwasher, but it looks like I won't be washing dishes anymore. I'll just be doing some prep work. So one day, as part of my job as a dishwasher, the restaurant has 3 ways for people to enjoy the meal. Okay, one of them is the drive-through. The second one is inside the dining room, and the other is the patio. So this was like several months ago, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and this woman came in with a dog. And so when I was out there, I saw that the water bowl was dirty. So I went into the dish area, cleaned it, and then filled it with water and brought it back out. Right. So the dog came over and started drinking it, and I called this dog Buddy. Right. Hey, Buddy. Right. I told the dog a buddy a few times. And the lady chimed in and says, his name is Max. Okay, she told me his name is Max. Then I heard it, but I never registered it and processed it and then reconnected with the information that I have. I was detracted, and the information I just recorded, but I did not glue it together with the consciousness to change the thing that I will say next, right? And so the dog was there, and then I was about to get in, and I told the dog, hey, buddy, right? Hey, buddy, right? That means that the brain was incapable. The brain was incapable of taking in the name Max, okay? Taking in the name Max, and then understanding it and using it at the same time. Whereas my brain called this dog a buddy And then I kept using it, so that name got latched in, and so the dog was recognized as a buddy, even though the lady, the owner, told me the dog's name was Max. And so at that moment, instead of me changing my mindset to call that dog Max, I still called it Buddy, right? So that is where the fallacy is in trading. In trading, I have to take the information. Okay, I have to take the information. Hey, what happened there? Oh, that is weird. Okay, so what? Okay, it looks like maybe it looks like something obscured the camera. Okay, so this is critical in, like, when people have a conversation, they have to be in the moment. They have to be in the moment to converse with the other person. Okay, if there's any lag in processing, like, let's say I'm face to face conversing with somebody, and then, but my mind is switched off in another planet, okay? And so my mind is somewhere else. And so there will be some sort of like conversation that's going on, but really nobody's home. Okay, when trading is done, there's nobody home. When the conversation is conducted, nobody's home to take that information, process it, and then use it in a conversation, and then send that out with relevant information that the individual who's communicating wants to either know something or is in the process of discovering something or know something or trying to have a conversation. But that person cannot have a conversation with somebody whose mind is out there calling a dog named Max Buddy, even though the owner says the dog's name is Max, okay? And then only like 6 months later, looking at it from trading perspective, so that's why there are people who are able to have a dynamic conversation with other people. And then there are people who are communicating with recorded messages. Okay, it's a recorded message that is communicating with the other person, and essentially, what that means is there's a shallow layer of subconscious things that have been recorded in the brain that are being automatically retrieved, and so the relevance of the individual in front isn't there. It's essentially like trading on a subconscious level, and not trading in a dynamic manner. And that's why what happens to most people is when they get into an emotional state of mind, and many traders are like that. Some people get into a state of emotional disturbance or interruption, okay, in the brain. And so that causes the person to think in a very shallow way of something that is happening right in front, okay? Because the thought is deeply embedded, okay? So I remember having this type of same scenario, okay? Some problems in engineering field is very difficult to solve. When something is very difficult to solve, the brain, most of it, has to be preoccupied into piecing together all the things and gluing it together, and every crevices of the brain is utilized to focus on that particular problem. And that problem, in order to solve it, has to be carried in the brain for several weeks. And within that time, when somebody is attempting to have a conversation, it is difficult to have a conversation because that conversation is outside of that cocoon of thinking that brings in the brain into, okay? And to have that, because it's preoccupied into a problem-solving mode. And so any conversation is taking a small portion of the brain to communicate. Essentially, what matters most is that problem that needs to be solved, and anything else is reserved for the small part of the brain. And therefore, when a conversation is held, the conversation is shallow and non-feeling and non-emotional. Okay, and that's why when people have this conversation, they say, "Hey, it's the conversation seems to not be involved." So there are people who are very good at dynamic conversations. They receive it, they process it, they think about it, critically think about it, and put their full brain power into whatever the response is. Incredibly smart people have the ability to connect their whatever they take from the environment and process it, and then send it out based on various techniques that they have for communicating. So trading essentially is just the same thing. So what I could have done was, had I known, I should have seen that the highs were actually lower. Okay, it was actually painting a lower high on these candles. So that should have been the first clue that I should have looked at. But I was focused on something else, or either that the interruptions that I have that are reprogramming my brain. Okay, so in the environment that I'm currently working at, there has been a change in my task and the period and the days that I'll be working. And so that information is being reprogrammed into my brain. And while that's happening, there's a preoccupation along with a deprivation of proper sleep. Now, these things are causing the brain to be partially thinking, even though the focus is on day trading. What happens is that the part of the brain is processing it, closely related to the amygdala, okay? The major functions of, despite the fact that there is a directive, okay? The logical side is saying, okay, I need to make this because it's been a very long time. It's been like almost a month. And so the progress hasn't been completed. And so there is an urgency that the logical side of the brain is dictating. When that directive is placed into the logical side, the subconscious side somehow just takes over, even though there's an active directive of the logical side to work with the subconscious side of the brain to get this thing working. The logical side essentially is detached from the subconscious side, and the subconscious side becomes more prominent in trading. And therefore, the critical component of when I look at it, hey, the results actually at a certain point, I should be saying, hey, my trade is negated at the point when the price has moved to that point. Okay, instead of saying, okay, so I got out, and then the mind doesn't think, and so the next day it still has this directive in the mind to get the trades taken care of properly. And so it still neglects the fact that it is actually in a downtrend. And while it's in a downtrend, I'm attempting to do the same thing that I did the previous day. And then on the third day, today, essentially attempting to do the same thing again. Okay? So essentially this happens quite a bit. This happens quite a bit when this seems to happen quite a bit because it comes in streaks. It's hard to after the fact. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. It is too obvious. Okay, it is too obvious after the fact. Okay, 3 days for the same reason. I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at the results, and I'm saying, okay, so how did that happen? Okay, how could this happen after the fact? It should have been so easy to see. Okay, but it's in the mind is in a state of a subconscious thinking that carries it over for 3 days It's a continuation of so it seems to me my brain, what it will do is when a directive is placed in the logical side, it keeps that thought, okay? It keeps it as long as possible. It keeps it. Even though the results are negative, it must process that directive. It has to process that thinking, that goal that I have. It has to keep it. It'll keep it until either I achieve it or I get to the point where the account is severely compromised, enough so that it actually separates. It actually subdues the subconscious side from doing what it's doing. Then the logical side comes back. Okay, the logical side of the brain comes back and controls the bodily functions. Okay, that's what it seems to be happening right now. So to make it easy to understand is this: when you are actively engaged in a conversation, okay, when you are actively engaged in a conversation, and the lady tells you that her dog's name is Max, okay, then you should be able to process that name, and then next time you call the dog, you should call the dog Max, not Buddy, okay? So this is precisely what trading really is about. When hand clicking and hand trading, it is essentially being in the moment. Okay, it is being in the moment. Okay, understanding it, and this reminds me of a conversation that I had with an engineer in North Carolina. I was trying to figure out why he was making these little funny faces, okay, when having a conversation, right? I was trying to figure out why. Now it's starting to make sense because I'm somewhere else. My mind is somewhere else. It's preoccupied. It's not fully engaged in the conversation that are being held. It's not fully engaged in the trade that I'm attempting to make. It is somewhere out there in the dream world doing something. It is processing something. It cannot let go of whatever the process that was done when that conversation started with the other person. So the person I was standing in front would make little faces, like squeaky little faces and things like that. And he didn't say anything. He didn't say why he did that, but we just had a conversation. The conversation was over. But what I recollect was the person making squinty faces, kind of a facial expression in front of me. Okay, so what he was saying is this: although there is a conversation that's being taken, the conversation that I am disclosing is on a subconscious level of communication, where this person is actively engaged in trying to understand and communicate in a higher level, deeper level of understanding. And therefore, he was making this face, and I was trying to figure out why was this person making this facial expressions. Now I know, okay? Sometimes I'm gone. My mind is gone. It's somewhere else. It's like, it's so preoccupied. It's so, that's what emotion does, okay? So I was listening to this YouTube video of, I saw this YouTube video of this woman who admitted, okay? She admitted that when it's her period, during the times where her hormones are acting up, during the time of her period, that she will be in a state of maniacal kind of a situation. And so she will be very nippy with anybody who's around her, right? She admitted, right? Now, when a woman is in that state of being where the chemicals inside her is causing her to be in a heightened state of agitation and hormonal imbalance, it causes the brain to be preoccupied with the body and functions of the new thing that's occurring, which even though the practice of trading has been the same, there is that emotional chemical component that is causing the brain to be shallow thinking and allowing the amygdala to process the trading part of it. And that's why during those times, it's best not to trade. And so essentially, when somebody says, when I call this dog named, hey, buddy, and the owner says the dog's name is Max. And so next time I call, it better not be, hey, buddy, it better be Max. But as soon as it came out of my mouth and I said that, I thought, whoa, I wasn't even thinking about that. She just said her dog's name is Max. And so I just realized it's like a catatonic state of mind. It's the mixture. So the first days of loss is essentially causes the brain to want to, because it has to make up that directive. It has to fulfill that directive. Okay. And then when that directive is not fulfilled with a gain, sufficient amount of gain to fulfill that state of mind, fulfill that quest, that directive, it'll keep doing it. The brain will keep running by itself. The brain will literally run by itself. At the point, there will be 2 points. Either I achieve it and that stops, that action is stopped, or 2, I get to the point where the tools that I'm using to get to that point has been depleted at such a point where it is either a blown challenge or it is severely compromised, like in this case, losing 6% in 3 days, right? 3 days. It took me a month to make 5.5%, and it only took 3 days to lose it. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. That along with risk management and trading plan. Okay, so what I've also noticed about when I was trading I was thinking about this too. When I was trading options, what I noticed is that statistically speaking, if I have 80% chance of winning, that means that whatever fund I have to split up into 10 pieces, okay? And I cannot be taking one piece and trade it and then add another piece at the same time. That would be reducing the pool of trades, reducing the pool of risks that I can take by splitting it up, right? So that means that the idea of making 10% on a trade is essentially 1%, because I'm taking 1%, dividing it by 10, which is 10%, and then out of that 10%, I'm attempting to make 10%, which is essentially 1% of all. And so the goal should be to make 1%, not 10%, okay, each time. Because if I split it up into 10 tradable increments, then I take that 10% and trade it for day one, okay? When I trade it for day one, what will happen is that if that day turns out to be the losing day, it'll be the 20% of it. That means that when I make money, it'll be the 80% that I'll make it. But if I take the whole amount and then trade it, even if I'm successful 80% of the time, then the 9th time it'll essentially unravel everything. Okay, so that's what's been happening here. Okay, that's what's been happening right now. There are several things that are occurring. One, conversing with somebody on a deep level of trading, where the other person does not have the emotional control and the knowledge of trading, and that causes my brain to revert back to a state of being a novice trader. Okay, and the second part is it's being complicated. It's being complicated by the agitation of not being able to meet the goal, and then having to absorb the losses that I've incurred, which then makes it makes me more determined, which causes me to sleep less, okay, and more agitated, and then carry that over till Friday, which is essentially today. Okay, it's Thursday, but as far as the forex market is concerned, it's Friday. So how do I resolve this? It's hard. It's because it's very difficult to do. It is not easy. It is not easy to do because it happens. It just happens. It happens to people, even people who've been trading for quite a while. They say, "Hey, well, I just blew my challenge." Right? They're experienced. They know what they're doing. They do that. It's all part of that emotional kind of thing.